Morning students. In today's class we will study about the reasons for conservation of biodiversity. Okay, it explains why the conservation or protection of biodiversity is very important. Okay, these reasons can be categorized into three main groups. Okay, the first category is narrowly utilitarian. Okay, why we need to conserve the biodiversity. The reasons for biodiversity conservation can be classified into three groups. The first reason is narrowly utilitarian. Okay, the second is broadly utilitarian. The third reason is ethical reasons. I will be explaining all the three reasons in detail. Let's begin with narrowly utilitarian reasons. Okay, so this is the first reason for biodiversity conservation. Why the biodiversity has to be conserved or preserved or protected. Okay, narrowly utilitarian. Narrowly utilitarian means there are some smaller application of the biodiversity or smaller usage of the biodiversity for which we need to conserve the biodiversity. What are those smaller uses? Okay, or what are those narrow benefits of the biodiversity? If we look into the benefits, then food is the major usage from that we are getting, or the food is a kind of narrowly utilitarian resource that we are getting from the biodiversity. Okay, food is a smaller usage that we obtain from biodiversity, in other words. Okay, what type of food that we get from the biodiversity? Biodiversity includes all the living organisms that we found on earth. Okay, it could be plant, it could be animals, it could be microbes. Okay, so the food is one of the usage or the use that we obtain from biodiversity. In that, cereals, pulses, fruits, different vegetables, different leaves. Okay, all these products come under food. Okay, in order to obtain food, we need to conserve the biodiversity. If the biodiversity is not conserved or preserved, then the food, we will not be getting food from this particular biodiversity. If the biodiversity is lost, there is no food. The second one is firewood. Okay, the firewood that we are getting, or the wood that we use in order to cook food or use for different other purposes in our daily life, that firewood we get because of biodiversity. Because firewood is nothing but it's a product that we get from a plant, and plant is the part of biodiversity. Okay, then the fiber. Okay, the fiber content that we get from biodiversity or plants is the major product that we are getting from biodiversity. Construction material. Okay, if you take sand or if you take wood that we use for the construction of buildings, that we are getting from biodiversity. Industrial products, we obtain different products from plant, which includes tannins, lubricants, dyes, resin, perfume. All these products that we call them as industrial products. All these products we obtain from biodiversity or from the nature. Okay, they are all the part of biodiversity. Medicines, we get, especially our Ayurveda is completely based on nature, right? All the medicines that we prepare in Ayurveda, they are the source for these medicines are nature, and that is the reason we call these products as the narrowly utilitarian reason why we need to conserve the biodiversity. Narrowly utilitarian means the smaller uses of biodiversity are these. Okay, we are getting all these products from the nature or from the biodiversity. Because of all these products, we need to conserve our biodiversity. Okay, if we have to get these products, obtain these products from the nature, then we need to save the nature or save the biodiversity. Okay, why we call them as narrowly utilitarian? Narrow means very smaller uses, smaller, right? So these are the small uses, small uses that we get benefited from biodiversity. Okay, bioprospecting. There is a process known as bioprospecting. What is bioprospecting? Production of economically important products. Okay, we take some products that we get naturally from the nature. We convert this product into an economically important product. For example, we get sandalwood. There are trees. There are sandalwood trees. We get the bark of the tree. Then we use that bark of the tree in order to produce sandalwood oil. Right? So the product that we get naturally from the biodiversity is the tree bark, the sandalwood tree bark. That sandalwood tree bark is brought, it is converted into sandalwood oil. Okay, so that is you are producing the economically important product by exploring the species level diversity. Okay, the diversity which is present in the species level. We know the importance of a particular plant species or animal species. We convert that the product that we get naturally into a economically important product. Okay, how this is helpful? By exploring molecular genetics. Okay, molecular genetics means we go to the gene level, we go to the DNA level, we go to the RNA level, and we modify a particular organism. Okay, there are genetically modified plants, there are genetically modified animals. Okay, genetically modified food. All these are the result of bioprospecting. Okay, we know the actual property of a organism which is obtained naturally. We convert it into an economically important product, that becomes bioprospecting. You know the production of genetically modified food and all. Okay, so these are the small helps that we get from biodiversity. So we call them as narrowly utilitarian, because we get all these products from the biodiversity or from the nature. It's very important to conserve the biodiversity. So this is the major reason why we have to conserve the biodiversity. Okay, the second reason why the biodiversity has to be consumed is broadly utilitarian reasons. Broadly utilitarian means largely helpful. Okay, biodiversity, as it is it is helpful to a smaller extent, it is also useful to a greater extent. We get very big usage or very high very big help from the biodiversity. Okay, not only smaller helps, we also get very big help from the biodiversity. They are classified under broadly utilitarian, large helps that we get from the biodiversity. The major thing is what we get is oxygen. Okay, from the nature we get oxygen. As I have already mentioned, Amazon rainforest contributes towards 20% of the total oxygen that is produced in our atmosphere annually. Okay, so that oxygen comes from plants. Amazonian rainforest, the trees or the plants present in the Amazon rainforest contributes towards this oxygen release. So that becomes the broadly utilitarian usage. Then the pollinators and plants. Okay, there are so many pollinators present in the atmosphere. We have studied about different agents of pollination. Okay, there are plants and there are pollinators who will carry out pollination in that particular plant. Okay, these are the products of biodiversity, right? They are the part of biodiversity. Without plant and pollinators, the world cannot survive, right? There are no pollinators, there are no plants. There are no plants, there are no animals. Okay, so these two are the larger helps that we get from the biodiversity, or the greater helps that we get from the biodiversity. The third one is aesthetic values. Aesthetic values mean we enjoy the beauty of nature, okay, or we enjoy the beauty of this biodiversity. Okay, you go to a forest area, you go to a hilly area, or you go to the river shore, you sit there or you watch the particular forest or the greenery or a particular hill or a hill station. Okay, you enjoy the beauty of nature. That is known as aesthetic value. This is one of the greater helps that we are getting from biodiversity. We enjoy the nature. We enjoy the beauty of the nature. Okay, so that is a greater help that we get from biodiversity. Not only getting products from the biodiversity, is helpful to us. However, there are some aesthetic values also. The happiness or the peace that we get by looking at the nature, by sitting in a seashore or a bank of the river, that is also a kind of help that we get from the biodiversity. Okay, then the next reason that we have to talk about in biodiversity conservation, the reason for biodiversity conservation is ethical reasons. Okay, ethical reasons. Ethical reasons means, ethics means our own, our own principles. Okay, we human beings are becoming very greedy and we are becoming very selfish. We think about only us, right? We do not think about other living organisms living on this particular earth. Okay, we should know that each and every organism has the right to live on this particular earth. Okay, we are not the dominating organism. Each and every organism has their right to live on earth. Okay, so that is the ethical reasons. This is the reason we need to conserve the biodiversity. Not that biodiversity is, the nature is giving us certain products, the nature is giving us, oxygen, we need to protect the nature. No. The reason is each and every organism has its right, has its, it has the, as I already told you, it has the right to live on this particular earth. That is the reason we have to conserve the biodiversity. If all the other living organisms are equal to human beings. Not only we have to live on this earth, every other organisms should live on earth along with us. This is the third reason why we need to conserve the biodiversity. The first reason is narrowly utilitarian. The second reason is broadly utilitarian. Third is what ethical reasons. Narrowly utilitarian means the smaller helps that we get from the biodiversity. Broadly utilitarian means the greater help that we get from the biodiversity. Ethical reasons. Okay, we need to consider all the living organisms equal. Okay, due to all these three reasons, it's very important to conserve the biodiversity. Let's move on to the next topic, which is biodiversity conservation. Okay, how we can conserve the biodiversity. Now, in order to conserve the biodiversity, we need to conserve each and every ecosystem. Okay, when we conserve each and every ecosystem, then the biodiversity that are present in that particular ecosystem will also be preserved or conserved eventually. There are two approaches in which we can conserve the biodiversity. Okay, two ways we can conserve the biodiversity. The first one is in situ conservation. This is also known as on-site conservation. Okay, in situ conservation, and it is also the other word for in situ conservation is on-site conservation. The next one is ex situ conservation. Okay, the name is little bit different. However, it's very simple. In situ conservation means you go to a place and you conserve the biodiversity of that particular area naturally. Okay, it is the conservation of biodiversity in their natural habitat, or when you conserve a particular species in their natural habitat, that is in situ conservation. Okay, what is ex situ conservation? Ex situ conservation means you bring a particular organism from their natural habitat and you conserve it in a artificial habitat. Okay, when we study about the different examples for in situ conservation, you will get to know. First, let us study in situ conservation in detail. I have already mentioned conserving the biodiversity in the natural habitat. Okay, in situ conservation means conservation of biodiversity in natural habitat. Okay, you found that there are certain tiger living in a particular forest, and they are in a danger zone. That means they are they will become extinct in few days because there are no proper resources available in that particular area. So what you do, instead of bringing those any animal, for example, if it is a tiger or lion which are in a danger area, instead of bringing those tigers and lion to a zoo and protecting, you go to that particular area. You will take care of the tiger or lions in their natural habitat, in the place where they are already living. Okay, you make sure you put a boundary, you make sure there are no other dominating organisms come to that particular area and attack these tigers and lions. You will protect these tigers and lions in the place where they are already living. Okay, you will not bring them to the zoo, or you will not bring it to your place and take care of the tigers and lions. You go to their place and you protect them. That becomes in situ conservation. On site, you go to the site and you conserve the organisms present there. Okay, it is conservation of biodiversity in the natural habitat. Now there are different examples for this. The first one is biodiversity hotspot. The second one is protected areas. Third one is sacred groves. Okay, biodiversity hotspot. This is a area where there is high amount of species richness. Now you go to any forest area, and if you find that there are multiple sandalwood trees there in that particular forest area, then what you do, you will consider that area as biodiversity hotspot. Otherwise, you go to any particular area of the forest, you will find that there are multiple species of different plants living in they are present in one particular area, and those plants are generally not seen in any other geographical area. Then you will consider that particular area as biological hotspot. Okay, biodiversity hotspot. Okay, you go to a forest area or you go to any particular ecosystem, you will find that in that particular ecosystem there are certain species present, and these species will not be seen in any other particular area, in any other particular ecosystem of your biosphere. That area becomes biodiversity hotspot. Okay, this is a area with high species richness and high degree of endemism. Okay, it is an area where you will find species richness, multiple species who will be present in a particular locality, that is known as species richness, and high degree of endemism. Endemism is it's a factor, or it is a property where one particular living organism is confined to a particular geographical area and it is not seen in any other area. Okay, the species confined to a particular geographical area and not seen in any other area in the whole world. Okay, that is known as endemism. Okay, you will find one particular species in only that particular part of India, and that species will not be seen in any other ecosystem. That particular species are known as endemic species. Okay, that property is known as endemism. Okay, so what are biodiversity hotspots? Area with high species richness and high degree of endemism. Okay, there are in a particular area you will find multiple species living together, and also you will you will recognize that these species are not seen in any other ecosystem. So that becomes a biodiversity hotspot. So in such hotspot, the government will take measures in order to protect this particular hotspots, and human entry and the interference of human beings will be completely prohibited, or it will be stopped in this particular area. Okay, the biodiversity hotspots in that we find, there are three different biodiversity hotspots. One is Western Ghats, and also Sri Lanka. The second one is Himalaya. The third one is Indo-Burma. Okay, we will find this biodiversity hotspot in Western Ghats in Sri Lanka, Himalaya, our Himalaya region, and also in the Indo-Burma locality. Okay, in these three different places we find biodiversity hotspot. These are the examples for biodiversity hotspots. Then we come to protected areas. Protected areas means the areas that are protected by the government itself in order to safeguard the living organisms present in that particular area, in order to safeguard different plants species or animal species present in a particular area. Okay, such protected areas are, the first one is Biosphere Reserve. The second one is National Park. The third one is Wildlife Sanctuary. Okay, you have come across all these terms in your school itself. Biosphere Reserve means we are protecting a particular area itself where there are a lot of species present. We are protecting a ecosystem itself naturally. National Park. National Park means these are the larger parks taken care by the government in order to protect the plants and animal species present in that particular area. Okay, human beings can visit this particular national park. They can just look at the organism, but they are not allowed to disturb any living organisms present there. Wildlife Sanctuary. Okay, it is a kind of, it is a place where wildlife are protected by the government. The point here, the point to be noted here is that all these places are known as in situ conservation. This type of conservation is known as in situ conservation, means you are going to the respective habitat and protecting the organisms or protecting the habitat. You are not bringing the organisms from their natural habitat and you will not grow it in your respective places, you will go to their place and you will protect them. Okay, and the last one is sacred groves. Sacred groves they are actually known as forest patches which will be worshipped. Okay, which will be worshipped. You know that in India we all consider plants as the certain plants especially as form of God, right? We worship those plants. For example, banyan tree. Okay, we worship those particular trees as a form of God, right? So in the forest areas there will be certain places or the patches of forest. Patches of forest means the smaller area of forest where there will be certain plants who will be actually those plants will be worshipped or it will be prayed by human beings. Such particular forest patches are known as sacred groves. In Kannada it is termed as Devabana. Okay, people go to that particular area and people worship the plants that are present in that particular areas. They will do the pujas and all and they come back thinking those plants are the form of God. Okay, such forest patches are known as sacred groves. Here all the plants will be protected by the government. Usually people will not be allowed to enter that particular area. However, the government will take care of the plant species present in that particular area. So the government is going to the respective habitat of that particular plant and protecting them in the natural habitat. So this is known as in situ conservation. You are protecting the organisms in their natural habitat. Okay, you will not take them out of their natural habitat. When I say you are protecting the organisms, it is not only animals, it also refers to plant community also. Okay, the first way we protect the plants and animal species is by making the biodiversity hotspots or detecting the biodiversity hotspots. The areas where there are so many species living together and also where there is high degree of endemism. The species found in only one particular place, not seen in any other area. Okay, examples are Western Ghats, Sri Lanka, Himalaya and Indo-Burma. The second one is protected areas. The examples are Biosphere Reserve, National Park and Wildlife Sanctuary. It is an area which is actually protected by the government. Sacred groves. The patches, certain area of the forest where there are plants which are usually worshipped by people. Such area of the forest are known as sacred groves. Again, they are protected by the government. So this is all about in situ conservation. Let's move on to the next type of conservation. Before that, let me give you some examples for sacred groves. Examples: Western Ghats of Karnataka has some sacred groves. Maharashtra, okay, Western Ghats present in Karnataka and Maharashtra region has these sacred groves. Aravalli Hills of Rajasthan. Aravalli Hills of Rajasthan actually has these sacred groves. Khasi and Jainita Hills. Okay, Khasi and Jainita Hills. This particular hills also has certain sacred groves. Okay, these are the examples for sacred groves. Khasi and Jainita Hills, Western Ghats of Karnataka and Maharashtra, Aravalli Hills of Rajasthan. They have sacred groves, whereas biodiversity hotspots are these three, protected areas are these three. Okay, so this is how in situ conservation actually contributes towards biodiversity conservation. Then we will study about the second type of conservation, which is ex situ conservation. Ex situ conservation is actually a little bit easier. Okay, here what you do, you go to a particular habitat, you go to any particular geographical area. If you find that there are certain species of animals and plants are under threat or are in danger, you bring the plant species and animal species from there, you grow it in your artificial environment. Okay, so ex situ conservation is done out of natural habitat. You do not do it in the natural habitat, you bring them out from their natural habitat and you grow them in a artificial habitat. I'll give you the example. The first example is zoological park, which is generally referred as zoo. Okay, so we bring different varieties of animals from different countries and we grow it in a particular place. Okay, so this is known as zoo. Botanical garden. Okay, in this particular place what we do, we grow plant species which have certain economical importance or medicinal values. They will be grown in the botanical garden. Here, if we find there are certain species of plants which have some medical importance, and if they are present in some other countries, we bring seed from there, we grow those plants in our country, okay, for the medicine. So such facility is known as botanical garden. And the next option is the seed bank, gene bank, okay, cell, tissue bank. Okay, so there are different banks in our country. Just like you have banks to store money, there are banks to store seeds, genes, okay, DNA of certain organisms, cells, tissues. Okay, in order to store these things, we have certain places which we call them as bank. Okay, where we will store these seeds, genes, cell, tissue, etc. Under cryopreservation. Cryopreservation means preserving any object in a very cold temperature. For example, the temperature of liquid nitrogen minus 196 degrees Celsius. If we store all these things in liquid nitrogen, at a temperature of minus 196 degrees Celsius, then we can preserve all these seeds, genes, cell, tissue, etc. for a very longer time, and when there is necessity, we can take out them from liquid nitrogen and we can use them for different purposes. Okay, if you feel that there are certain plant species which will become extinct in few years, what you do, you collect seeds from that particular plant and you keep it in a seed bank, okay, at a very low temperature so that it does not germinate. When you feel that it is necessary to grow that particular plant, you take it from the seed bank, you plant that particular seed or sow it in the soil so that you get the respective plants. Okay, so these are the different examples. Also, the next one is tissue culture. Okay, in order to protect the biodiversity, we also have to carry out tissue culture sometimes. If it is difficult for you to grow a particular plant because it is difficult to obtain the seeds of that particular plant, or it is difficult to get the plant from one habitat to other habitat, then what we do is we collect the tissue, one small piece of one small tissue part from that particular plant. We culture it in the laboratory and we get the whole plant. Okay, so this is also another technique how we can conserve the biodiversity. So in this particular ex situ conservation, we do not go to the natural habitat of any particular organism. We bring them to an artificial environment, artificial habitat, and we take care of them. This is about ex situ conservation. These are the different steps that we follow in order to conserve the biodiversity outside the natural habitat. Okay. So with this we end this topic known as biodiversity conservation. We have to study about 2 agreements that were signed by different countries in order to protect the biodiversity, that we call as Convention of Biodiversity. Students, next topic is Convention on Biodiversity. Convention on Biodiversity means in order to protect the biodiversity, in order to reduce the biodiversity loss, different countries of our, different countries came together and they made some agreements. Okay, so these are the 2 major agreements made by different countries in order to protect the biodiversity. The first one is known as Earth Summit. Okay, Earth Summit is a type, it's a kind of agreement. It was made, it was held in Rio de Janeiro. It's place in Brazil. Okay, Rio de Janeiro. This summit was conducted in the year 1992. Why this summit was conducted? In order to conserve the biodiversity. Okay, all the countries of the world came together and they took an oath that they will conserve the biodiversity. Okay, they signed an agreement that they will conserve the biodiversity and sustainable utilization of its benefits, and they will use the biodiversity products only to a certain amount, that they will not over exploit the biodiversity. We have studied how over exploitation of biodiversity is being done by human beings. In the World Summit, in the Earth Summit, different countries came together. They signed an agreement stating they will conserve the biodiversity of their country and they will also reduce the usage of products that we are getting from biodiversity or from the nature. By doing this, they will protect the biodiversity. This is the first agreement signed by different countries. It is known as Earth Summit. The next summit was the World Summit. Okay, in this particular World Summit, it was held in Johannesburg, South Africa in the year 2002. Okay, 190 countries participated in this particular World Summit, and all of them they signed an agreement in order to reduce the biodiversity loss. They promised, or they took an oath that they will reduce the biodiversity loss at global level, regional level and local level. Okay, that means they will contribute towards protecting the biodiversity when global wise it's taken into consideration, or the regional level, that means your particular region, or the local level, or the place that you are living. Okay, the locality. In all the levels, if we protect the biodiversity, then only then the global biodiversity can be protected. So all the 190 countries signed an agreement stating they will reduce the loss of biodiversity in their particular country, and and also they will do it local level, regional level, so that it can contribute towards global level loss of biodiversity. It will contribute towards reduction in the biodiversity loss in the global level. Okay, so this is all about different topic. Convention means it is an agreement made. Okay, and with this we end this chapter, biodiversity and conservation. We have studied about how biodiversity loss is happening, what are the reasons, causes, effect of biodiversity loss, and we have seen how to conserve the biodiversity, in situ conservation, ex situ conservation, and also what are the different agreements signed by different countries in order to protect the biodiversity, known as Convention on Biodiversity. With this, I am ending this chapter. If you have any clarification, please get back to me. Thank you.